Happy Homebrew Wednesday, guys. Brian for Short Circuited Brewers. I'm out in the garage today, and with summer coming on, one of the things that I've wanted to do is brew some lagers. I've never done that before, and so wanted to try my hand at it. And one of the things I know that I'm going to need for that is a temperature controller. Probably going to try to find a used fridge off of Craigslist or something, $50 to $100, somewhere around that range. And then what I'm going to use is one of the Ranco controllers, and what I wanted to do is kind of show everybody how they are wired up. First thing we're going to need for doing all that is obviously some wire cutters, a small screwdriver, something you're going to be able to get to the contacts with. And then finally, for disassembly and reassembly of the actual controller, either a screwdriver or a small impact driver. Another thing you'll need is a output for your power coming out of the controller. And I am going to use a short extension cord. That way I can run an extension cord out of the controller and plug it into the wall. If it's a fridge, I can have it a few feet away from an outlet, and then you can actually use the other end to do the outlet. So that's where we are, and we'll dive right into it right now. Also, in an upcoming episode, we're going to be doing some hops, just some different things about growing hops, what we've got going on. I've got my hops are going in their second year, and I will be showing what that looks like and what I've got going on and what kind of I'm doing in the future with that. So without further ado, let's dive into wiring this up. Alright, so I've got the screws loose already on here. I'm going to go ahead and take off the cover. Basically, you're just going to lay it off to the side. All of the components are in there for that. The connections are in here. Power inlet, power outlet. Of course, it's covered so that you don't shock yourself if you don't unplug it before servicing. So we're going to go with the 120 volt AC load, and I'll show you how that's going to be wired up. So the first thing we'll do is we'll get our extension cord, and I'm probably going to have about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 inches or so out of the controller so that I can plug in my fridge or freezer or whatever it is that I finally wind up using with it. We'll set that off to the side right now and strip the wires on this. Alright, so we use a razor knife to cut those. I'm gonna figure on probably just enough to unsheath everything inside. The controller does not have a ground in it, but I do want to wire all the grounds together just so that everything is grounded on both ends. So the first thing we'll do is we'll strip off all that, and then we're going to strip off just enough wire. These are actually contacts that have a screw that goes down into them, so we'll strip off just enough wire so that we can get those underneath of there without too much excess sticking out. We're using 16 gauge wire, so we'll put it on the 16 gauge hole there and strip those off. And last but not least, the ground. Alright, so before I get started, one more thing I wanted to discuss was I need to install some sort of a wire holder or something to hold the wire from, actually, if you pull on the cord, I don't want to jerk these off of the PCB on there. So we'll install that real quick before we get going any further on it. Just put it in there and run it down tight, make sure everything's good and snug so that it does not move. So we're good to go there. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do after we get our wires through there is we'll actually have to trim this so that we can get our commons wired together. I'm going to trim off just a little bit more than what I need here because I'll probably wind up needing a little extra wire because there's a jumper wire that has to go between the hot terminal or the power terminal, load terminal, to the actual controller terminal on the outlet side. So get our wires stripped, back to the 16 gauge wire, strip that one. Alright, now I'm going to stick this wire also through here, run it up through there. You can already see it's pretty snug as is. So go ahead and wrap these two together. That way we can put them underneath the neutral terminal. It's so wonderful being out in the garage. It's about time. Spring has finally sprung a little bit. It's beautiful out. You can probably hear the birds chirping in the background. Alright, looks like we got that. Alright, now one thing we're going to do is, just so we have a ground, the controller itself doesn't have a ground, but basically what we'll do is we'll take both grounds from the outlet and the inlet and wire nut those together. That way we have a fully grounded system. Doesn't have to necessarily ground through the box itself, but at least we're grounded on there. I would have liked it if it had a ground lug on here. That way, if this controller got wet or something, you wouldn't have a chance of electrocuting yourself. But no such luck on that end. So the next thing to do is put in the common into, I'm going to move this thing out of the way because this is really a pain to deal with. Next thing to do is wire in the common power wire for the inlet. Slide that up just a little bit. But one thing we do have to do according to the schematic is we have to run a jumper wire down from the inlet down to the common, or the C terminal down here. Alright, so I made the jumper wire and it's going to go into the terminal down here. So I've got it running out of the power terminal here. It's going to come down and go into the control terminal down here. Tighten it down. Then we've got the outlet. This is actually on the outside, the output. Put it in, tighten it down. Now all that's left, put the cover back on, and you are ready to go. Alright, so to review, here's what we got. We've got the wire coming, the cord coming in, the power is going into the second terminal. There's a jumper wire coming out of that second terminal, going into the first terminal on the control box, the controller inside. The neutral wires are both wired together and coming to the common or neutral lug in the controller itself. The ground wires are both wired together to complete the circuit. So basically what happens is the power comes in here, turns on the system. This relay here is what actually engages either your refrigerator or your heating source, depending on whether you're heating or cooling. It'll do either one. But that's basically the workings of it, and that is the wiring for 110 volt controller. It is a Ranco, I think it's 12000 is the model number on it, if I'm not mistaken. All we need to do now is just put the cover on and plug it in to the wall and plug it into our cooling or heating source, and we're good to go. Alright, so I hope that helps you guys with wiring your Ranco controllers. Some of the schematics in there can be a little daunting sometimes, so hopefully it helps you with a little basic electrical stuff. I'm not an electrician, but consult one if you're not one either. But talked about hops earlier in the show, and so I wanted to show you guys where my hops are now and just kind of what a plan is for those. So let's go take a look at that. Alright, so we're out here in the back yard of my house, and there's a plant, Cascade. We've got Centennial, we've got another Centennial, and then a Chinook, Golding, and over here there is Willamette, and unfortunately the Tettnanger that's there was done in by the lovely Scott's Lawn Care folks. So I don't know if it's going to survive or not. It didn't produce anything last year anyway, so whatever. But so anyways, my plan is to take and put a pergola up over top of the deck, and 6x6 posts, 3 of them along there, another 3 in the back, and then go up 10 feet with it and put ropes up to train the hops to climb up there. So that's an update on my hops so far. I'm not going to go too in depth with all that stuff. I'm going to actually do a complete bed all the way around the whole deck so that these things don't have grass encroaching on them, but that will be for another time. And Kyle and Mike are also going to be doing some stuff with their hops, so we'll tie that all in together. Kyle just planted his first. Mike bought a bunch of rhizomes to plant, but we'll get into that another time. All right, guys, that's all for this episode. Hopefully I'll get to brew this weekend. I haven't gotten to brew for, gosh, I think it's a month now, something like that. I've just been so busy with everything else, so hopefully I'll be able to get back down in the basement and brew some this weekend. But the SJ Pour beer, I won't be brewing that for a little while because it is an IPA and I want to try to send it out at the peak of its freshness. So I'm going to wait until we get a little bit closer to the deadline for the competition to send that out so that I can make sure my beer is as fresh as it can possibly be. But that's all I got for this week. Sorry this is a little bit late. I'm shooting it Wednesday night. It's just been hectic at work and everything, and probably noticed a change of clothes. The wife called me and said, hey, let's do happy hour. So how can you say no to that? But at any rate, cheers. Hope you're having a good week. And have a beer. The weekend is near. Thanks for watching, subscribing, and liking. See you next time.